You ready to do this?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, here we go. Another episode. Grind my gears. Brian Singh, also known as Coach B, in the volleyball realm. Also, we're related, so that also helps too.
But, yeah.
What's up? How you doing, bro? You good?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on. This is great.
I'm good, and I mean, first thing I haven't talked to you in a while, so congratulations on the little man.
Oh, thanks, man.
We were just talking about it before we started, but yeah, just wait. He's 11 months. Wait, 2 years old. Oh man, it's a nightmare.
I get it. We'll see when that time comes. I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah, my guy is. He's just like I was telling guys at the gym this today. They're like, because they haven't seen him in a while, and they're like, "How's he doing?" I'm like, "Oh well, yesterday he went in the fridge, pulled the milk out, dropped it on the floor, and then he got his hands and knees and started licking it off the floor."
Oh, nice.
Just wait, boys are another animal.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, and he's true. He's fearless. He's just he's gonna kill himself every day. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's just jumping off shit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, same with my little guy. Yeah. But yeah, so how was it having a pandemic baby?
Oh yeah, I guess technically he is a pandemic baby. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of towards the end of serious. I mean, define serious lockdown, but it was like to the end of it where it wasn't as bad as I guess before when the pandemic first hit and there was no policies, we didn't know anything about it, and now I think with that, our Michelle's, my wife's doctor, also delivered the baby, so that kind of helped too.
Yeah.
But it was different. It was weird. Yeah, there's so many rules. Like, once you got in the hospital, you couldn't leave.
Yeah.
And there's just like I can't remember, but there's just so much other rules. Like I had to ask permission all the time. Like, am I allowed to do this?
Yeah.
And they're like, yes or no.
Which is ridiculous because
it's crazy. It makes no sense. But
it's like yeah, it is what it is. But like we were lucky where Benson was born December, right before this started.
Oh, okay.
So we didn't have to deal with any of that shit.
Yeah.
Through because I was hearing some horror stories from people who did have babies during the pandemic.
Yeah, I heard horror stories too, which is I was freaking out. Like I wasn't like some of them I wasn't allowed to be in there, and then
that's what I was.
This and too. That, like just like unnecessary stuff.
Yeah,
but
but I mean, at least everything worked out. But anyway, for those who don't know, Brian is a master volleyball coach, one of the best in Canada, right? Head coach of the volleyball Sting, and runs some amazing online programs as well. Now, the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is, why volleyball? Because growing up, you were serious about basketball, and then I wouldn't say it was a shift, but your passion automatically kind of just gravitated towards volleyball, and then you pretty much dived straight in, went all into coaching and with the athletes. What led to that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I was a basketball player coming up, but then we went to West Hill, and the competition at our time. They were all national level players.
Yeah.
So not that I fell out of love with it. I knew that competitively, I wasn't gonna go far in the sport. I'm a 5'7.5" skinny brown kid. It was really tough to see myself going far in the sport. But I still enjoyed playing it. And at the time, my brother was playing on the volleyball team, and he wanted to try it for a club team because that was like the nature of the game at that time. I was like, I want to play club. Well, okay, cool. Let's go find a club team. So looked at the Scarborough Titans. That was a local club team. We went in, and he made the team, and I was like, oh, this sport seems kind of easy to coach. Like I could probably help out.
Yeah.
So I started helping out at the elementary school, and I was like, oh, this isn't bad. And I just started learning, and I realized that, well, this thing's pretty cool. Like there's a lot to learn about this sport.
Yeah.
And then I became kind of like basketball. Like when you really love something, you become obsessed with it. So then I wanted to really learn everything there is to know about it because I'm a competitor. So when I step on the floor, I want to make sure nobody beats me.
Well, you're an addict. You're an addict to learning, right? It's the same thing as me. It's like I've growing up. When I got involved in martial arts, everyone would be like, "You're addicted." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fucking addicted. It's addicting." Right?
Yeah, that's right. And you want to win, right? Especially competing against somebody else. Like you don't want to lose. So, I started learning. I went from elementary school to coaching high school, my former high school. I started coaching there, and then I got the opportunity to coach club. And then from there, again, keep learning. And then I ended up training some national level players, which was kind of cool. I got a little bit on the national stage in terms of people who knew who I was.
Yeah.
And then the college job opened up. And I actually didn't apply for the college job because I thought I was underqualified. And at the time, I think I probably was.
Yeah.
But I guess they didn't find the right fit. And then it seems like one of the players that played on the team was coached by me, and he put my name in the conversation. And so the AD reached out to me and said, "Would you be interested in applying?" And I told the AD, I'm like, "Yo, I don't think I'm qualified for this job." He's like, "Just apply anyways." Yeah. I applied. I had an hour-long interview. I had to do this crazy presentation on how I would run the program, and then I got a call the next day saying I got the job. So that's my story.
And that's normally how it kind of goes, where some of the best coaches don't necessarily seek that level of coaching, because like I know a lot of guys in my sport, for example, but like even a guy I played football with, Shea Pierre, he was an elite level strength and conditioning coach, and he took the job with the Argonauts, but it wasn't really like what he wanted to do, right? But he was ready for it, but they kind of reached out to him. It wasn't like where he was seeking it out, right? So sometimes that really happens, and it's a blessing because it takes people like you where you weren't even really thinking about it, right? And then
I probably still wouldn't be thinking about it, to be honest.
And then that elevated your game and elevated your coaching game and all of that.
Right.
But what is it about volleyball, the sport itself, the essence of it?
Oh yeah, good question.
Draws you to earth?
Yeah, like you think about basketball, when somebody dunks a ball, that's like the pinnacle of the game. So that's the big showstop moment. I mean, later in the years, it's transitioned to 3-point shot, but dunking still has that really cool appeal. Well, in volleyball, when someone attacks the ball, like spiking as it's known, that's kind of the same effect. It is a great feeling, and it is mad cool when you see someone get up super high. Like basketball players are athletic. Volleyball players have one of the highest verticals out of all the sports. Yeah, and they're jumping super high, and they're killing this ball. And you see the level of athleticism and how like the intricacies of the game. I was like, yo, that's something I can see myself getting behind, and I love that aspect of it. And then my brother coming up too helps.
Yeah. Strategically, how is it different from basketball? Like in terms of basketball's play calling, and volleyball has play calling too. But how strategically is it the same or different?
I think basketball is a little bit more strategic because basketball, you have the element of like there's a lot more physicality. You have 5-on-5, full court, and there's so much things involved with basketball that is like I think strategically there's a lot more you can do with 5-on-5. On the floor where everyone is potentially involved in a particular play. Yeah. But one big thing that's different about basketball and volleyball, in basketball, someone can take over a game. Like, so you can give the ball to somebody and they can go to work. Yeah. In volleyball, that is not the case because 3 people need to
touch the ball.
Have to touch the ball. Yeah. I mean, if one person touches the ball only, that ball is going to go back over and it's an easy ball for the other team. Yeah. You need to get that ball to a center who can deliver a good offense and then be able to put the ball in a good position to score. So it is such a team. It's a little bit more of a team sport than basketball in that regard. Yeah. But I mean, I love both. I still play basketball. It's just
no. It's in the blood. It's in the blood.
Yeah.
But like when you're talking about strategically moving the ball around the court, right? Because I would consider myself, like if I'm ranking myself, I'm a white belt in volleyball. I used to play a lot in elementary school, but when you're moving that ball around that. So the first touch of that ball, is it more strategically to get it to the area of the court you want the attack to happen from?
No, the first contact is you want to get it to the center. Okay. You want to get it to your quarterback. And the quarterback has the ability to deliver the ball to a great location every single time to set your team up to score. Yeah. And in volleyball, you have 4 hitters. So depending on what hitter, depending on what route they're running, and this is where it gets tactical. The different routes hitters can run, the different type of speed of the ball that's going to be delivered to the attackers, and then the type of shots the attackers make. That's where tactical comes in.
Yeah. And do you guys pick on certain players? Like when you're facing a team and okay, this person's weak, they can't dig that ball out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When we have our scouting report and we do our film and stuff like that, like match preparation, they have a scouting report prior to the games and they know exactly who the weaker passers are. who, like, if you serve to them, they're not going to get the ball to where they want it to go. Yeah. We know who the weaker blockers are. We know who we want the ball to stay away from. Yeah. So yeah, all that comes into the scouting report.
Now, is it generally the tallest guy you want to keep it away from?
No, not necessarily. Like at our level, I mean, all the guys are across like 6'4" to 7. 6'4" to 6'9". It's not the taller guy. It's who can convert. The guy that's converting the most on the other side, like who's attacking the ball at the highest clip, highest hitting percentage. Those are the guys you want to keep the ball away from.
Yeah, and is it physically intimidating when you get, like, if say you have, I mean, I know all of them are tall. Like you're talking about a 6 foot average, 6'2" average. Do you notice some of your players still getting intimidated by just size and height?
Absolutely. Yeah, we lost in a quarterfinal match this year to the number 1 team in Canada, and they were huge. Yeah. It was the first time our guys played against a team that big, and not that they'll argue they weren't intimidated, but they definitely were.
Even if their skill level was higher, like it's that Space Jam effect. You know what I mean? Where you see fucking the Monsters. Oh shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just even if it's for a second, it takes you off your game. I mean, that happens in fighting too. Like sometimes I'll stare across from the guy. I'm like, oh shit. Even if he's like a thickly muscled dude, like, damn it, what am I about to? And then it does have an effect, but like for each sport is a bit different. But volleyball. Now, what is it like for the speed of the game as you go through the ranks, like from high school to rep to the collegiate level to Olympic level? How, like, like when you talk about, NFL football from high school to the pros, or from college to the pros, it's not necessarily about who's stronger or who gets stronger or fitter in that time. It's about speed. The speed of the game is different. What do you notice from the level that you're coaching at the collegiate now to the Olympic level in terms of speed? How different is the speed of the game for?
Well, you hit it on the money. The speed is a lot faster. Like the tempo of the ball when it comes out of the setter's hands is super fast. The biggest thing with pro ball and collegiate level is physicality is a factor. Like guys are bigger, guys are stronger, so they can serve at higher speeds. Yeah. If a guy's serving at 120 kilometers an hour versus at the collegiate level where you get like the 90s, that's a big difference. Versus, if also the physicality of the game is significantly higher at the pro level, meaning when the ball is put along the net, they can utilize the block to their advantage. They can go harder. They can hit harder. Yeah. If you're digging a ball that's coming at you a lot slower, it's a much easier dig versus the ball that's coming at you a lot faster. Yeah. So I'd say that's the big thing. The speed and physicality at the next level is tough.
Do you find a lot of collegiate athletes struggle with that transition if they want to make that jump?
Yeah, absolutely. Because technically, they know how to serve, they know how to pass. The problem is you've been passing against a ball that's in the 80s. Now you're passing against a ball that's in the hundreds. It's a different game.
So for this sport in particular, what does the athlete need to do? Like, say once they graduate and they're deciding, okay, I want to pursue this professionally, but they're a bit slow, right? There's only a handful that come out of collegiate sports that are ready for pro sports. Even if the skill wise is there, they're just physically not ready. What can an athlete do coming out of collegiate volleyball to put themselves in that pro/Olympic level physicality that you're talking about?
Well, the one thing is you can't teach size. So if you're at a under 6, you're at a disadvantage right off the back. It's going to be very, very hard.
The genetics, right?
Yeah. So even 6'2", 6'3", like it's tough. You could do it, but it's tough.
Yeah.
So if you can't teach size, the only other alternative you got to do is you have to increase your vertical jump and you got to get more physical. Yeah. You have to be able to convert. Like, if a setter sets you the ball and you can convert at a high clip, then you'll be of value. But if you can't when I say convert, I mean put the ball away. You can't put the ball away, then you're of no use. Yeah. And the alternative is the libero position tends to not factor in height as much as other positions do because you're not playing on the net. Yeah. So at the libero position, where that's a defensive specialist, your job is to pass and play defense. Yeah. If you can do that at a high level, then you have a shot.
Yeah. And physically, like we're talking about athletes who are 6'4", 6'5", generating a lot of like you said, vertical. And I know you have a big program to help athletes develop that. Without giving away your secrets, how do you how do you first like take a high level collegiate athlete, high level rep athlete, and say they want to get, well, what's one of the first 2 or 3 things you look at to increase that vertical to put them in that Olympic/pro level?
Yeah, I know. I can tell you really simply. When normally people that if you've never been taught how to jump, you don't know how to jump efficiently.
Oh, yeah,
so you got to learn how to jump efficiently. So my vertical jump program composed of 3 phases. Phase 1 is technique. So teaching your body how to jump. How do you manipulate your speed? How do you manipulate your posture, your breathing? These are things that actually matter, have value. The second thing is strength training. So we're not Olympic lifters. We don't. It's a different science with vertical jump trainers. Yeah. So how do you strength train for vertical jumping? So for example, when you're squatting, you're loading in the hips. Yeah. That's where you're putting most of your emphasis on is hip mobility and driving through your hips. And that's where you're going to see your gains. And then the third thing is plyometrics rather. Yeah. So plyometrics is vertical jump exercises. So how are you doing things like that? So a real quick breakdown is manipulating your speed. You got to make sure you're approaching. Every step's got to be fast. Your last 2 steps have to be your fastest. I'm sure you've heard that before. That's really interesting. It's really interesting to train athletes how to do that. Your posture, you don't want to be slouched. You want to be nice and tall. Yeah. You want your chest up.
It's probably why my ass can't jump anymore.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like it's one of those things.
Jiu-jitsu ruined my posture. Like,
oh, okay.
Wrestling, like my wife was always like, "Stop punching." I'm like, "Nah, that's how I jiu-jitsu, man."
Right. Yeah, there you go. And then when it comes to just understanding, like the squat, for example, seeing athletes loading their hips and making sure they're driving through. And here, one interesting thing that's different about vertical jump training than any other Olympic type of lifting is, with Olympic lifters or lifters in general, when you're at that, like, let's say you're benching and you're at that like 7th, 8th rep and you're just like, push, like just get it off you. Yeah. You really try to push your body to another level that it's never been before to grow. Yeah. Vertical jumping is different. We don't train that way. So we train our type 2 fast twitch fibers, not our long twitch fibers. So what that means is, right. So you understand this is when you're hitting exhaustion, you need to stop because now you're entering the realm of training the wrong fibers. So with vertical jump training, sometimes I'll take an athlete in the gym for 10 minutes and I'll say, "Hey, we're done. Your muscle fibers haven't recovered yet. You're not ready to train yet. Let's go back in recovery. And when we come back the next day, we'll see how it happens." And then, so I'm looking, and anyone listening to this can attest, or you can try to do this in your gym. Yeah. Look and see when are you hitting that point of exhaustion? That's your cue. Stop, take a break, try it again. If you are continuing to hit that point of exhaustion where you're not being as explosive anymore, then you've exhausted your type 2 fibers and you're done. Well, congratulations, you go home and recover.
And I think that's a lost art with weightlifting, strength training, and coaching in general, because everyone's so upset. Like, I mean, I'm gonna use this as an example because I always use it as an example. Like, if you walk into any good life, you always see people doing fucking box jumps. It's just something people do. They jump on a box, and the first thing that pisses me off, they jump off the box. I'm like, well, why the hell did you jump off the box?
Right.
Jumping off the box had nothing to do with anything, and what you end up. People will get mad at me because I'll set up a box for them to jump, and I'll set up a smaller box for them to step down. They're like, don't you want me to jump down, jump? And I'm like, no. I'm like, first of all, the point is the jump, not the fall. That's a separate training method on how to, take a landing properly. And secondly, every time you jump off of a box or you're practicing plyometrics and you make contact with the ground, you're compressing your spine and your knees, and over time, that's going to lead to less explosiveness and injury, for that matter. Right? That's the first thing I always see when people are training, like any explosive plyometric jumping. They're always up, down, up, no, stop jumping down, step down, reset. It's the point of what you're trying to achieve is explosiveness, and the highest you can jump, say, for example, vertical. You shouldn't be repetitively doing it over and over and over again.
You're not wrong.
That's just exercise, which is not wrong, but don't tell, if the goal and the method of your sport, for example, if you're training an athlete for his NFL combine, vertical jump is one of the testing measures that they do. well, you're not going to be doing 10 box jumps back to back to back to back. It has no bearing on the actual vertical at all. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's other I forgot the method name, but it was one of the methods where they do one rep and then they
one
go
rep
away.
Max?
Yeah, they just do one rep. No, one explosive rep of whatever exercise it is at a heavy weight, and then you go away, go do something else, and then you come back 10 minutes later and then do one rep again. And they found that was very effective into building that explosiveness. Now, it might not apply to jump training specifically, but in terms of explosive training, which is what volleyball athletes are.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the other things, how important is cardiovascular fitness? Because like for the specific sport we're talking about, you have 6 players. It's 6, right? Yeah, and it's not like they're sprinting from side to side constantly. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel it's a certain level of cardiovascular does need to be there because the games can drag on. Like you can have 40 fucking points scored in a game based on how long, how tight the game is. But how important is it? Like, what kind of cardiovascular methods, techniques do you guys use to develop the athletes? Because I feel like steady state cardio, probably is not ideal for that sport.
You're right. We don't spend too much time with it because they get it during their training. Yeah. Like they get it during our like team drills and things like that. We don't have a specific time where we're like, all right, we're going to work on your cardiovascular system here because it's quick burst. Yeah. It's all quick burst. A rally in the men's game is like a couple seconds. Like a long rally is like 8 seconds. That's a long rally. Yeah. So you're working on quick explosiveness, but where it can get tiring is if you're running if you're blocking along the net, you're being explosive, you're coming down, ball comes over, and now you got to go attack. They dig it. And you're that little 8 seconds spurt that's tough, but that's about it. So there's no long distance running or anything like that. However, you have to be lean and fit without a doubt. Yeah. And you'll get that with proper diet, strength training, things like that.
So there's no specific cardiovascular regimen for elite level volley players.
No, not really. Besides, like they have their lift. Yeah. And besides their lift, like that's pretty much it. They'll get their cardiovascular stuff inside the gym with us.
So it's more in game, in practice cardiovascular than. And do you find that what do you do with players that do wear out, like that you do see fading in a game where they shouldn't be fading?
Like if they're out of shape, then that's a problem. And they'll have to go do something separately with our strength training coach. Then they'll have to like do sprints or whatever. They'll have to look at their diet. They gotta get the weight down. Like we'll check in with them. We've had situations where after a Christmas break or after off season, guys will come back in out of shape, and you could right off the bat tell like this is not right. And then they got to deal with that on their own. Because that's just unacceptable to us.
Then they'll just get cut, right? So.
Exactly. So it's more of an expectation. Like in basketball, it's different. In basketball, you are running sprints because you have to have the ability to run up and down a floor for 48 minutes potentially. Yeah. So you need to not only be in shape, but you have to have that cardiovascular longevity to do that. Yeah. In volleyball, it's not as demanding as that.
Now, do you find that some of the players lose their explosiveness as the game wears on? And how do you address that concern?
To an extent, but it's not something where it's going to hurt us. Okay. It won't hurt because there's so much more involved than if you lose an inch on your jump, that's not a game changer. Okay. It's not like, cause there's so much timing, shot selection, different things like that. So it's not really a factor in terms of that. However, if they're getting fatigued and they're pounding the ball out because they're getting gassed, or they're making stupid decisions because they're fatigued, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, and what do you do for an athlete like that? How do you approach,
Well, we either got to take him out of the game. I either got to call a timeout. We either got to take him out of the game. But we're hoping that through training and through our program is that when you do get fatigued, if you can't get on top of the ball the same way you would have in the first set, you're smart enough to still make. We always say swing with a purpose. Yeah, you got to go up there and swing with a purpose. And as long as you're doing that, you're being efficient. You still convert. You're okay.
Yeah. So what? Going back to the different levels that you've coached, and you've been to so many different levels and work. What is your absolute favorite? I know, Most people will be like,
Ooh,
oh,
that's
because
tough.
I'm working at pro level now is my favorite. But what's your absolute favorite level to work with? High school kids, even recreational.
Yeah.
Because sometimes once you get to the pro ranks, you realize, I'm still having fun. It's my job, but it's not really the same. You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. Like, and it's funny because I've taught, I coach pro players and I coach my daughter who's 3.
Yeah.
So it's so funny to see the difference. But I think what do I enjoy the most? That's so hard. They're so different in all different regards. I love, like, of my college team, I love the competitiveness, I love the athleticism, I love the level of play. It's super exciting. I love that. But I got a different appreciation from when I coach a high school girls team, for example. They're like the emotion and the appreciation I get from them. It's like, they actually appreciate the hell of, like, what I'm doing.
Yeah.
The men's team, they're like, that's your job. Like, what do you mean? That's your job. Like, it is
guy,
what it is.
This guy's getting paid. He doesn't care.
Like, it is what it is. But, and then with my daughter, like, I teach my daughter and a bunch of other 3-year-olds. Like, I was like, it's only 4 of them.
Yeah.
And I love it because I love seeing the joy that they're getting for the game. Like, they're learning the game from the ground up, where they're bumping balloons and doing all this fun stuff over net. I'm like, that makes me so happy.
Yeah.
So I can't, I really don't have an answer to your question because it's so different, and like there's so much different appreciation.
Yeah.
And I find that it's funny. I get more stressed out with my high school girls than I do with my men's team.
Really?
I don't get stressed out on my men's team. Like, I know we have a plan. We're gonna do what we got to do, but I know that at the end of it, they're going to be fine. My girls' team, I know they're sweat, blood, and tears. Like, they're doing it for themselves, for their coaches, for their parents, for their like, they're doing it.
Yeah.
It's a different vibe with the girls' game than it is with the guys' game.
Well, I feel like too at at that level, the athletes have a little bit more to play for, right? Yeah. Because they're growing up, whether it be rep, high school, whatever, and they might have that dream or the aspiration of playing at the next level. Whereas sometimes, like, I played football in collegiate. Now I fight professionally. When you get to that level, you still have drive and determination, but it's almost like, okay, it's just my job.
Yeah,
it's just my job to play well. It's just my job to train. Whereas when you're coming up, it's more of a passion, right? And I find, like, when I show jiu-jitsu or MMA or anything to any other pros or any high-level guys, I don't get as much enjoyment as where I was teaching white belts, beginners. Like, fresh out, they have no idea or they have no concept or want to professionally compete. They just want to learn.
Yeah.
And to me, I find as a coach, I actually gain more out of coaching them. And as an athlete too, because when I have to retract back to the beginning stages of teaching, like fundamentals, like how to move your hips, how to, for our sport, how to frame, how to get up off the floor, how to reverse positions, how to sweep. Those are things that at the highest level you take for granted that everybody knows. So you almost neglect teaching those fundamentals all the time. And you almost forget them yourself. Whereas when you're going to the lower levels, you're like, well, you have to learn those things. Otherwise, the sport is completely gone. You can't even compete or think. So I find there's almost more enjoyment. I get more enjoyment out of teaching beginners because it forces me to go back to basics. You know what I mean?
That's actually a good point. I feel the same way when I coach young kids. I love it because it does force you to go back to the basics.
Well, and for them it's fun too, because when you get to that collegiate level, let's be honest, some of the guys aren't having as much fun anymore. They're competing with each other. They're competing with other people on the team, other girls on the team. They're competing for spots, and that's a whole nother freaking.
Yeah, I agree.
Thing. Now, when we look at, you're so deeply entrenched in volleyball. When you look at Canada volleyball on the world stage, where do we compare in terms of the rest of the world, in terms of our athletes and our volleyball programs that we run up in here?
Yeah, I think we're top 20. I think we're about top 20 in the world. We're getting there. We're a little bit. Our women's team was a little bit behind, but they're trying to revamp that. And the men's team is okay. They qualified for the Olympics for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
I think last Olympics, and they're good. It's getting there.
Yeah.
The men's national team hired a new coach. The former coach did a really good job. He built the program, and now we're seeing a little bit more new blood come in the program and things like that. So we're not the Brazils and Argentinas and
Cuba's still up there, right? They used to
Cuba didn't. I don't think they qualified for the last one. In Japan, but
traditionally they've always had.
But they're good. Yeah, Cuba's definitely good. Yeah.
And what do you think is the difference? Now let's talk internationally. What do you think is the difference between the level or the athletes that are competing at top 3 or 4 teams in the world compared to the Canadian athletes?
Well, the thing is that we start late. Like in Canada, we start in European countries. When they're one, they're giving a volleyball. It's like, this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the sport is big over. There's no pro leagues in North America. All the pro leagues are in Japan and all over Europe and so forth. So there's no pro leagues in Canada. So that already you're at kind of a disadvantage in that sense. And then not to mention when an athlete first starts playing the game, they're like 8 years old.
Yeah.
Not to say that that's too late, but when athletes are over there they're playing like 2-3 years old. They're getting used to it.
Yeah, it's no different than the evolution of like mixed martial arts, for example, because when it started blowing up, it was more older guys. Like they started when they were like, 14, 15. And as time went on in the evolution of the sport, you're seeing people like, they're becoming black belts at, 16 years old sometimes, which, that's another conversation. I don't always agree with handing those out. But the level, my point being is because they were exposed to the sport so early, the level is constantly going higher and higher and higher. So I guess for what you're saying is that volleyball really, if it's introduced more at a younger age, then we're going to see more development, right?
Yeah, and it's tough. Like, I mean, in Ontario, it's nowhere near as big as it is in California. Yeah. Mind you, population densities and stuff like that, I get that. Well, but in the U.S., it's way bigger than it is in Canada.
Weather has a big deal to do with it, too.
You're absolutely right, because you can play on the beach out in the South. Yeah. But over here, that doesn't unless it's an indoor facility, you're not playing on the beach anytime soon.
Exactly, and because I know I go to Woodbine Beach here in thing all the time. Yeah. They have some pro leagues that go on there too.
That's right.
But unless you have an indoor, beach facility, like do they have those in Toronto?
Yeah, there's a few.
There's a few of them, but they're not like the fact that I even had to ask you shows that they're not. It's not like you can drive. Oh, look, that's an indoor beach volleyball place. Like, right.
And it's different. It's not like basketball. Basketball, you get a hoop, you're good to go. You play by yourself on the driveway. You can't do that with volleyball. It's not. There's no hockey. You get a net, you play on the driveway. You can't do that with volleyball. So it's tough.
Yeah, you need a team, and you need a group of people to play. You can't.
Yeah, you need at least 4 to set up something.
So in terms of Canada's athletes. Compared to who won the Olympic gold last time?
France.
What would Canadian athletes on that level need to do in order to aspire to be the team like?
That's France? Tough. You know what? I gotta say, like all 8 teams in that Olympics were really good. Yeah. Like they were all really pretty much equal. I think it came down to errors. It came down to errors. It came down to experience, a little more experience on that level. Because, on our men's team, we don't have a lot of Olympic experience.
Yeah.
So it came down to a little bit of experience. And honestly, there some of the best players in the world are not Canadian.
Yeah.
So that when you have really, really good players like LeBron James, Jordans, etc., like they're going to be, like on France, for example, they have one of the best volleyball players in the world.
Yeah. So
it is what it is.
Yeah. And now, what is the rule in terms of, like, I don't know, that's why I'm at. What's the rule in terms of competing professionally on, like, the tour, the beach volleyball tours or whatever, and then competing for, like, your country or locally?
Well, nothing happens. You go compete. The seasons are now finishing up overseas. Okay. So the pro seasons are all finishing up now, and the Olympics and all the summer games and all that stuff happen in the summer. So after they finish with their pro teams, if they make the national team, if they're invited to try out or invited to be on the national team, the guys will have a choice of doing that. If they don't, they have the summer off.
Now, what's the pay like for those athletes? Is it enough to make a living, or are they?
Well, for volleyball, yeah, like volleyball, it's not a lot. Like here's what happens with volleyball. It's a little different. So when you go out to Europe, they pay for a lot for you. Like they'll pay for your housing, they'll pay for you'll have like a food allowance. Sometimes they'll give you a car. A lot of situations they give you a car. They give you everything, and then you have your pay. But it's all 1 year contracts, 1 to 2 year contracts.
So it's nothing guaranteed.
No, it's not like a 6-year deal, whatever. And like you'll make like a $50,000-$60,000, you'll make like 50-60K as a regular athlete, which isn't bad. And once you get kind of higher up there, and the leagues differ too. Like depending on the league, you'll make more money depending on the league.
Yeah.
Like even, and I'm talking Canadian dollars, like $40,000-$50,000 Canadian dollars. And then once you get up there, you can make you'll make your 6 figures.
So 40-50 Canadian, so that means 25 US.
Yeah, like 30K US. Yeah. So and it depends on the league too.
So basically, they make as much as a carded Olympian athlete.
Yeah.
Professional volleyball. So
I don't know what Canada pays their Olympic players. Actually, I lied. I don't think Canadian players get paid at all to play on the national team. They just get things. In fact, I think you got to pay to try out. I think it might even cost them money, and then they'll get reimbursed, or they'll get like an allowance for something when they go out, but they don't get paid to play.
That's fucking ridiculous.
It's not like the U.S. where they'll get paid.
Well, yeah, these guys like I remember when I was in university, there was we had a track athlete. He competed for the Canadian team, and he was a carded Olympian, and he got $15,000 a year.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
How in the heck? Like, I could say so many cuss words to say, how in the heck, I'm going to use heck though, do you expect an athlete to compete at the highest level for $15,000 a year? Now you're telling me that you have national level volleyball players who are dedicating their life to represent Canada and they get nothing. Like,
yeah, it's a culture thing. Canada doesn't value the same amount of, like, we don't value sports the same way as the US does. Let's just be real. Even like it was so obvious in the lockdown where they banned sports, like U Sports and OCAA weren't allowed to participate, but like OSBA, which is an Ontario high school league, was allowed to participate. Yeah, it didn't make any sense.
And in this last lockdown, they even put in the rule set that professional mixed martial artists weren't allowed to train, which good luck telling a professional fighter you're not allowed to train. That's not going to happen. But like, it was so bananas that, like you just said, the value for the athletes. Like, I know an Olympic wrestler. He went and competed this past year in the Olympics for wrestling. He got a bylaw ticket for training. Like,
there you go.
Come on, man. Like, what do you do on that level? What does Ontario Volleyball, or what do they do to help to get that funding?
It's tough. I mean, with that, I think Canada has they have a fund that they like fund sports and things like that for the national team, so that's there for them. But it's not. You're not, if you're playing volleyball in Canada, you're not in it for the money. That's why you go overseas and play pro, right? You can make money playing pro overseas. But once you finish graduating collegiate ball, like you got to coach if you want to make money playing volleyball or doing anything volleyball related. That's it.
So most of these kids, once they're done at university level, they're pretty much,
you're either playing pro for the handful of them that can play pro, and you're leaving home to go play pro for like a good amount of time. Yeah. And then if you don't play pro, you got to find a job.
Yeah. Well, like most people.
But,
yeah. Well, but see, here's my issue with that. It's devastating for a kid. You know what I mean? To put in years and years and years of work, and for some of them, they need just one more opportunity, and they can actually compete at that level, right? It's not necessary that they weren't. You know how, like, when an athlete's not ready for the pros, they take that extra year, and I'm trying to, like, the NBA has the developmental leagues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they take that extra couple years and play there, and then they might get the call up. Or I think we have the 905 team and stuff like that. Those guys make a living. They're still making some money playing basketball. Mm-hmm. I honestly believe for sports like volleyball, they need to do that because there's no money in it, and if you want any of those programs to grow at all, you have to invest into it like that. But our governments don't care about that.
Yeah, sports it just on a national level, it's not as heavily funded or a priority versus like the U.S. and other around the world, and it's clear you can see it.
Yeah,
like you can see it straight up when you look at pro athletes.
It happens in mixed martial arts as well, right? It's no different. Now when we're talking about volleyball, what are some of the the key coaching differences that you see between volleyball and other sports, for example? Like how would you have to approach, if you're just given a blank slate, of a volleyball team, a basketball team, and a football team? Like, what are some of the key differences that you have to take as a coach to get these kids or athletes ready to compete?
That's a good question. I actually don't think there's much of a difference, and people may disagree with me, but I approach volleyball the same way that a basketball coach would approach basketball, same way the football coach. You have, like, with the exception of the skills, like obviously, you got different skills, of course. You're in basketball practice, you're worrying about your dribbling, shooting, pick and roll offense, blah, blah, blah. In volleyball, we're talking about volleyball stuff. But in terms of coaching, it is relatively the same thing. We all have to plan a training camp. We all have to plan our season. We all have to have strength and conditioning and our court time, right? We all have to have certain things. And it's just a matter of how you structure it. You all have to teach the athletes how to do certain things. You have your film and match preparation and post-game and scouting reports and, all that stuff. The only thing that I could think of is different, and I guess this is probably true because I've been around the sport, would be like basketball, for example. I know, and I might be wrong, but this is my experience. You could go hard on your athletes. Like you could get in there, you could drill them, yell at them, make them run, and making them run harder will foster that more competitive fire in the basketball player. Yeah. I think it's the same with football to an extent, but with volleyball, you don't really do that much in volleyball because you might hurt the athlete more than help the athlete. Some athletes will they'll strive off that, they'll thrive off that, but I don't think the culture of volleyball is that like, let's go on the line. Da, da, da. It's not like that.
Is it just because of the nature of the sport, or is it because of something that was built into the coaching?
You know what? I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure where it came from, but over time, and I could be wrong. Like, I don't know if in other sports, I'm sure mental health, I know mental health is in other sports as well and in other things as well. But I find that even in basketball and football, there's still like that culture, like, hey, it's that grit, like that. Yeah. Like, I don't know how to say it, but that physicality culture, like we're going to do it. In volleyball, it's still there, but it's just a little bit different. It's not.
I think I can relate it to the fact that, in volleyball, you're not directly making contact.
There you go. That's a good way of putting it.
With the other team. Where, like, basketball is not technically a contact sport.
Right.
But, like, when you're talking about boxing somebody out, when you're talking about, like, foul that guy. Like, no, foul him. Like,
yeah.
Like, he needs to, like, potentially get hurt off after this play. Like, he's killing us. I need you to foul him. Like, there's that aspect to it where you are not separated by a net. You literally have to encounter this person face to face, even if there's not direct contact in the sport. So I think that's one of the things. But,
I have an answer for you. Here's something. So, like, in basketball and in football, like when you dunk on somebody, when you tackle somebody, there's emotion there. It's like, yeah, let's go, and you might look at them, you might look at your team, whatever. Yeah. In volleyball, if you do that, you got a warning.
Really?
It's more, it's very, until you hit maybe the pro level where that's a little bit more accepted. And this drives me nuts, actually. I actually talked to one of the head officials in Canada about this, is the level of, like, because volleyball used to be a gentleman's sport, quote unquote, a gentleman's sport, right? Yeah. It never used to be the way it is now. Now it's like exciting, it's loud, right? So it's slowly starting to get to that point where even up to me, like when my guys get a kill, like when they get a kill, when they kill the ball, I want my guys off the bench to jump up and, like, get amped, get excited about that. And you'll see refs saying, "Hey, calm down," like, stuff like that. I'm like, stop it, guys. Come on, what are we talking about here?
So if somebody got a kill and, like, the other team, the guys are on the floor, like, mashed up, mangled, because they tried to save it, they couldn't make the save, and you go up to net and beat your chest and be like, "Yeah, boy."
That's a yellow.
That's fucked.
Yeah, that could be a yellow. You probably get a warning. Yeah. And the next time you do it, it's a yellow.
And then I guess red is you're out. right?
Yeah, well, red and yellow is out, but you'll get a warning, and then if it happens again, then you probably get a red, and then if it happens again, you get a red and yellow.
So
because it's unsportsmanlike.
That's not unsport. That's pussification. That's pussification, right?
It's called competitive sport.
Right.
So that's what I think.
It was like I think it was either swimming or volleyball in this last Olympics. I don't remember. It was the Australian coach, and the athlete won. I think it might have been swimming, but the relation is the same. The athlete won, and the coach. The camera goes on to him, and he's like pounding his chest, and he's like, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's toxic masculinity." I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? That's called emotion." He's freaking amped that his girl won the fucking race, or like, and so that's probably why that culture is passed down over the years through volleyball. Like, hey, mellow it out.
Yeah, when I see refs, it's a pet peeve. When I see refs do this, or like that, I right off the bat go and talk to them. I'm like, no, we got to stop this. Well, as long as we're not being disrespectful in any way, fine, I'll say that. But if we're being competitive and we show some excitement because we did something great in our sport, that's what makes a sport a sport. Yeah, we need to,
competition. That's why you're doing it, to compete.
Yeah, exactly.
So if someone made a kill and say the other guy was at the net and he just slammed it right over his ass and he stared his ass down, they give him a warning for that?
You got a warning for that, yeah.
Oh, no.
I know, it's ridiculous.
I can't.
Basketball is getting to that point, too, now. You see a lot of guys getting texts for... I mean, they're letting it go a little more in the playoffs, but actually, basketball is not nearly as bad as volleyball. Volleyball is worse. But even sometimes in basketball, when a guy dunks on somebody and he stares him down, if he does it long enough, he'll get a tech.
That's so stupid. And it takes away from the sport, but it also takes away, like, when you limit athletes like that, it actually takes away from the competition. Right? Yeah. Regardless of this, if it's a male or female, like, adrenaline is high, and when it's pumping, and you have two athletes competing against each other, or two teams competing against each other, and you let that go, that's when you actually start seeing magic happen. That's when you see, like, real, like, one of the things I love about hockey is, like, when you get overtime hockey, and they tend to in the playoffs especially let things go a little bit. Like, they let they won't let all penalties go, but they'll a hard hit that normally in the first period they might call it in over. But to me, that's one of the most exciting sports is like playoff hockey, where they kind of let them play. You know what I mean? Or even NFL football, where they back off. Like, every time someone touches, it's passing the field.
Yeah.
Right? No, like, if you break it down, it's not actually a penalty. Just let them be physical with each other to a point where no one's getting hurt, obviously. But I mean, I don't understand why you wouldn't let that happen in volleyball. Nobody's physically hurting each other. It's not a contact sport. Like, you should just. You should be able to scream and yell at someone across the net, and if they can't take it, too bad.
Yeah, especially where there's a net blocking you.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, guys. What are we talking about here? I agree.
Do you find that changes the mentality? Like, what I'm trying to get, like, do you find that there's volleyball athletes have an ego that gets suppressed by the rules of the game?
It's sometimes not so much, because we're so used to that. Like, they know it, like, they know what's going on, so it wouldn't suppress them at all. But it's just annoying.
Yeah,
it's just super annoying. And I tell my guys, I'm like, we actually have a conversation at the beginning of every season about like what you can or cannot do on a celebration.
Yeah,
and I mean, sometimes my guys take it like a little excessive, but it's never disrespectful, and we're fine. If I get a warning, I'll tell the guy, listen, the guys are fine. I'm like, listen, it's fine. You keep doing it.
Speaking of egos, what's it like in the volleyball realm from collegiate level? Like, do you have to sometimes talk some of these kids down? Like, maybe they think they're bigger than the team.
And in any sport, at the collegiate level, you have guys that they think they're the shit, and they come in and whatever. But it depends on the coach, how the coach does this. I've seen coaches have a horrible time with this, and you could tell right off the bat that player is able to do whatever the hell they want to do.
Yeah.
But on our team, I think this is really something I'm really proud of with our coaching staff, because culture is a big thing. I mean, I know that word gets thrown out there a lot, but culture is a huge thing with us. Like, we have a lot we don't tolerate. And if you cross that line, you get penalized, suspended, and or kicked off.
Yeah.
And we hold guys accountable.
Now, for coaching, being a head coach at collegiate level, there's a little bit more to worry about than obviously professional, because these kids are still students, right? How do you find the balance between a player that might be a standout on the court, but a flunker in the classroom, to achieve that balance? Because I mean, in the U.S., a lot of that is masked. Because there's money involved with the NCAA, right?
That's right.
One of the most corrupt, evil organizations on the planet. That's another topic. But how do, on the Canadian level, because I compete in Canadian collegiate sports, you can't get away with it that much. So how do you find that balance between an athlete who wants to dedicate his life to the sport and all the time, but is lacking in the classroom?
It's tough, and it's so hard because we can only do so much on our end.
Yeah.
We can have study sessions. We can talk to them. We have our one-on-ones at the beginning, middle, and end of the season. We're very close with the guys as much as we can. And I mean, I've had guys tell me, "Hey, coach, I'm fine." Like, "Oh yeah, school's great. No problem. Like, I'm good." Yeah. And then I get the report from our coordinator. They went 0 for 4. They went 0 for 5. I was like, stupid. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's one of those things where you just try to when you recruit, make sure you're recruiting guys that are coming in, that's going to go to school. It's going to, do well in school. You're not just recruiting guys that are barely making it through high school, and that's why they're coming to you. So you got to be careful with that. And then you got to take it from there, man. But that's a never ending battle. There's no solution to that. That's going to be, every individual kid is going to be different, and you just got to work with it.
Now, is there anything you guys do as a coaching staff, or is that kind of like it's out of your hands? You just kind of have to encourage them, but in terms of
we have our study sessions. We have our follow-ups, our one-on-ones. We have a varsity coordinator who, meets with our players one-on-one periodically throughout the year to do check-ins and make sure that they need access to tutoring, they're there, that they have the support. But you're dealing with grown men, and these guys got to take accountability too. It's not like dealing with high school kids. It's easy. Yeah. You see them every day. I can monitor their grades. Yeah. I have access to their grades. In college, I don't have access to my kids' grades. I don't know what they're doing. They don't have to. They're adults. They don't have to tell me anything.
They don't have to say shit, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to maintain a certain GPA to maintain.
You got to pass.
Right?
You got to pass 66.7% of your course load.
So to maintain eligibility.
Maintain eligibility, yeah.
Like, you'll still be in school if you get 50%, but you have to, in order to be an athlete to compete, you have to have 66.7.
No, you have to pass 66.7. There's no GPA requirement. You just have to pass. In order to stay on scholarship, you got to get above a 2.0. It's like a C+. It's nothing. Okay. But in order to be an athlete, it's not that bad. In order to be an athlete, you just can't fail one course.
Okay, that's not terrible.
You can't fail more than one course. So if you fail one course, fine, but you can't fail more than one course.
Well, that's still not terrible. That's pretty good.
So you can get 50s and everything else and fail one course and you're fine.
Just pass.
Just pass. Yeah, that's all you gotta do. Just pass.
Now, what is these? I know that Canada's been lacking in this from my time, but I mean, it's been a while since I've left school. What is the scholarship programs like now, in terms of for coaches to attract athletes? Because do you get athletes from out of Canada to be able to come to?
It's not very often unless they're part of the international program.
Yeah. And
every school is different. Every school has a different scholarship policy.
Now, I mean, I'm sure it's not secret, but what is your school's policy that gives you leverage to kind of recruit the best athletes?
So in our league, in the OCAA, we're kind of limited, and the maximum allowance that we're allowed to give an athlete is $3,000, and that's mandated by the OCAA.
Jesus Christ, that doesn't pay for tuition.
Yeah, it doesn't pay for everything, but now in U Sports, it's a little bit different. Like they don't have a mandate on tuition, so universities can give as much as they can see fit, depending on how their budget is, depending on the size of school and things like that. Yeah. And every coach will have a different budget.
Yeah, well, because when I was in school, they were just introducing it, like right when I was leaving.
Right.
So, it was that's why I'm asking, because it's such a disadvantage for Canadians. To not have that at any level, right? Like, even if you're competing at college or university, to be able to just freely say, okay, I'm going to compete and represent the school to the best of my ability, but to not get any financial compensation, and we're not talking about money like in your pocket. We're talking about like alleviate my bills, my school bills, so that because when you're talking about a collegiate athlete, and I think this is lost on a lot of people, this is why the NCAA pisses me off so much, right? Because when I take the time that a student spends going to class, studying, and then the extra time involved with
that's right
court practice, which I would assume is at least about 90 minutes to 2 hours minimum, right, a day. And then that's minimum. That's not on top of
strength training,
film study, the mental training and aspects that, like, you're talking about a kid doing a full-time job, which is a student, plus another full-time job, which is an athlete, and then not getting a break financially from, the institutions or the government.
Yeah.
And then you're expecting them now to either take a loan out, which would then put them in debt after they're done, or work on top of that, like a night job, which is what a lot of people did when I was going to school, just to pay for school. Like the expectation on Canadian athletes is horrendous.
Yeah, it's crazy. I agree. Yeah, Ash, I gotta go in 1 minute. Sorry, man.
No worries. I gotta wrap this up too because it's date night. It's date night for us too. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to ask you about is when you get a blank slate athlete, you get a fresh kid, freakish genetics, just prime and ready for you to mold. What do you do as a coach? Like, how do you take that one kid and bring him to that level that you expect on your collegiate team right now?
Man, skills. We got it's like teaching the skills. You got to go back to day one. This is how you do the skills. We really, really teach the fundamentals and skills of the athlete. We get him on a great strength and training program, which is the same as all of our guys. So we focus a lot on that with him. A lot of one-on-one time. And honestly, that's what it's about. And then the experience will come as they get more touches and they see more teams and they see more things on the court, because that's tough, is getting that experience at the higher level. But honestly, it's about skills, feedback, constant feedback, and development. Like, even though we're a collegiate level, we are still developing athletes. Yeah. So we got to still focus. We have a developmental, huge mindset in our program, and that's what we do.
So, and I think that's, as we wrap this up, I think for any young athlete or any athlete listening to this in general, I mean, the thing that gets lost is, you see all these cool freaking videos online of these people doing, amazing strength training and amazing, just freakishly athletic things. And the one thing that you need to realize is, like, Lionel Messi didn't become a great soccer player by running wind sprints. It's a part of it.
That's right.
But he became a great soccer player by learning how to kick, by kicking the ball. LeBron didn't become LeBron by, playing at the park. No, or doing chin-ups. He didn't, I'm sure that man could do a lot of fucking chin-ups.
I know.
But he shot the ball. I mean, before we wrap this up, the biggest story is one of our favorites, Kobe, right? One of the stories that I always go back to and I always think about when I hit a rut myself is when he was competing on the Olympic team. He had called the coach up in the hotel. I don't know if you remember.
I know the story. Yeah.
Right. 3 a.m. Called the coach up. He's like, "Yo, come help me my shot." He's like, "All right, I'll be there in the morning at practice." And then he's like, "No, I'm at the gym right now." So the fucking coach gets out of his hotel room, helps Kobe with his shot, and then goes back to his hotel, sleeps, gets back on the court for 7 a.m. So he's like, "What time did you leave?" It's like, and then Kobe finishes that shot. He's like, "Oh, this is 1,000. Now I'm done."
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's the skill aspect to it. We're practicing the single skill all the time.
Right.
All right, cool. Anyway, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. It was fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and we'll do it again sometime. And before you go, tell everybody where they can reach out to you if they want some help with their game.
Oh, man. I'm all over. Instagram is probably the best way. Brian Singh _Coach B. It's Brian Singh _Coach B on Instagram. And if there's any volleyball coaches out there, which I don't know if there is, but I have a podcast called the Volleyball by Design Podcast. So feel free to listen to that.
There you go. Check it out. Volleyball by Design, Coach B on Instagram. And thank you. That's it. Thanks, brother. Hey, everybody. Thank you for watching. please do me a favor. Click the like below. Share on YouTube. Share on Instagram. Share on Facebook. Spread the word so I can keep creating more content for you. Keep providing you with a great podcast experience. Peace out.